Alrighty. Well, um, I got another video uploading now. I'm going to break down the situation with the truck for you guys a bit. I did get a call from the garage. The truck is ready. The final bill came out to quite a bit more than I thought it was going to. But I have had that broken down for me, and it makes sense now where it didn't make sense before. So anyway, what I will do though is I'll tell you something here. I've been watching some of this stuff about the Jeffrey Epstein files and all that. And here's the thing. Here's the thing I find really interesting. We're treated like children, adults, adult people like me. Look, I'm 57 years old. I have experienced things that would make you puke. And I've seen things that would traumatize you. Um, I guarantee I have. The average person, unless they've been in combat or something like that, hasn't seen the kind of shit I've seen. And I know that because when I talk to the average person, if I tell them a little bit about the stuff I've seen, they can't stand it. They don't want to hear about that. It's too much for them. So right there, things that have become almost normal for me, people find just too upsetting even to hear about. So I'm certainly not somebody who's led a sheltered life. I've seen the dark side of the world. I'm aware of the dark side of the world. I've been aware of it for a long time. I was aware of it before most people were. Most of the average people weren't aware of it. To the point where most people thought I was crazy. Because who could possibly think that this sort of thing goes on? Anyway, the Jeffrey Epstein files are confirming things that I was saying 20 and 30 and 40 years ago, and that people just couldn't believe. And here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. They bleep out words. When they do their videos, they bleep out words. Or either that or they have to change words. They have to make a nonsense word up that means whatever it is they're trying to say. Otherwise, the video gets demonetized or taken down or whatever. Now, here's the thing. We, the common people, aren't allowed to hear those ugly words because we're treated as if we're children. We're treated as if we're lesser than adults. We're not adults. We're lesser than that. Yet the people who run this system, they can go out and do this stuff with impunity. They can go out and they can do unspeakable things to children. They can run human trafficking rings. They can torture people. They can kill people. They can sexually molest people. They can eat people. See, I'm saying the words. I don't care because I'm talking to adults here. I'm an adult, and yeah, I'm an adult. I will use a word like rape because that's what it is, or I'll use a word like molest, or I'll use words like sex and sexually. And, sexually molest and so on. I'll use words like human trafficking, sex trafficking ring, all of that stuff, human sacrifice, murder, because that's what it all is. And I'm an adult, and you're adults. I'm speaking to adults here. I'm speaking to people who are my equals. I'm not speaking to little kids. I mean, but here we are. These people go out and they do these things with impunity. A grown man will go out and buy a child so that he can rape and murder that child. Let that sink in. And I mean, a man who's the head of a big corporation or who's a high-ranking politician in a government, a president or a prime minister, or a governmental minister or a congressman or whatever, a senator, whatever. The head of a big corporation, the chairman of the board or whatever, they'll do this. And they'll do it with impunity. But if we talk about it, we can't say rape. We have to say grape. We can't say murder. We got to say unalived. They were unalive. No, they unalive. What does that even? That's stupid. They were murdered. But let's just be honest about it here. Let's say it for what. Let's just use the words. I mean, we have words like murder and rape for a reason. Because unfortunately, in this fallen world, those things happen. And sometimes they happen to little children. So, sometimes they do, I mean, look. Let's not sugarcoat things. One of the reasons that these people put these restrictions on us, oh, you're not allowed to say that. One of the reasons is because they're trying to minimize it. They're trying to make it out to be less than it is. And they're also trying to degrade and belittle us. I'll tell you, when I had the bad run-in with the cop in Ottawa back in 2005, he called me over to his car. He'd gone to his car to write out these tickets he was going to issue me. And then he called me over to his car, and he called me Tommy. Not Tom. My name is Tom. Now, my name was Tommy when I was a little boy. And I still have some family members who call me Tommy just out of force of habit because, that's what they called me when I was a child, eh? So they called me that out of force of habit, And especially some older family members will still refer to me as Tommy. But that's not my name anymore. I'm a grown man. I accept it from them because I know it doesn't come from a bad place. And I know it's just force of habit. That's all. And I don't care. Call me Tommy. I don't care. But see, when that cop did it, he did it as a belittling thing. He did it because he was basically making me out to be a little boy and not a man. That's what it was. And that's the same psychological game that's being played now, where they're telling us you can't say certain words. You can't describe what we've done to the children honestly, because you shouldn't be using that kind of language, and people shouldn't be hearing that kind of language. Yeah, you know what? If you rape a child, what you have done is far worse than what I'm doing by using the word rape in relation to what you have done. In fact, if I use the word rape in relation to what you have done, all I'm doing is describing what you have done accurately and using the English language to do it. You didn't grape the child. You didn't grape them. You didn't give them a glass of grape juice and send them on their way. That's not what you did. You raped them. If you bought a child and you made that child into your sex slave, and you repeatedly raped that child, and then when you were finished with them, you murdered them, you are a rapist and a murderer. You're not a grapist and you're not an unaliver. You're a rapist and a murderer. And I don't care if you're a president of a country, a president of a corporation, or some hillbilly living in a trailer park in Louisiana. Doesn't matter to me. If you've done that, then you are what you are. And I'll call you what you are. I don't care. It's outrageous. It's outrageous that these things go on, and then it's outrageous that we're told that we have to use stupid, childlike words to describe what goes on. You know, no, I mean, look, you know, uh, we got a system that's run by some pretty bad individuals. That's the bottom line. We do. We have a system. And the more proof that comes out that that is the case, the more they're trying to pass laws to censor us and so on. Say, oh, you can't talk about that. You can't use those words. You can't talk about that. Oh, that's hate. You can't say that. That's hateful. We'll lock you up if you say that. Well, look, it's not a matter of hate. It's a matter of accuracy. You know, and, as far as not causing upset goes, people need to be upset. People need to be outraged about the things that have happened. You know, the only way we're going to get any change in this world, well, we'll get change when Jesus comes back. We will get change then. But the only way we're going to get any positive change in the meantime, and it's going to be an uphill battle because this is a fallen world and it's run by Satan. But if we're going to see any improvement at all, we're going to have to be a few things. And one of those things is outraged. We're going to have to be offended. We're going to have to be outraged. We're going to have to be angry in a righteous way. Misdirected anger is no good. Misapplied anger is no good. We need to be angry in a righteous way and in a sensible way, in a rational way. And we need to be honest. We need to be honest in our words. We need to be honest in our actions. And our actions need to reflect the gravity of what has happened. That's the bottom line, that our actions need to reflect that. And these people that have done these awful things, they need to go away. I can't put it any clearer than that. They need to go away. And, we outnumber them right now. Why do you think they want to depopulate us? It isn't because we're wrecking the planet and they're so concerned about the planet. Look at the environmental damage these people do. Isn't it interesting that most of these people are continuously pushing for war? How much environmental damage does a day of war do to the planet? If you could add up what one day in World War II, the toll that took on the planet, the amount of contamination that put into the air and into the soil and into the water, one day of warfare. If you could go back to 1943 and you could just go over to Europe, anywhere in Europe, and you could just somehow measure the amount of damage that was done on that day due to the war and for no other reason, damage that would not have been done, contamination of the ground that would not have been done, contamination of the water, contamination of the air, environmental damage that would not have been done had there not been a war on. Not environmental damage that would have happened anyway due to industrial practices or farming practices or, people driving vehicles or whatever. But just the amount of damage that was caused by the war itself, it'd probably be off the charts. These are people that own multiple homes all over the world, all of which have to be maintained and heated and everything, whether there's anybody in them or not. These are people who fly private jets all over the world. They don't go commercial. They don't ride on a commercial airline. They have their own private jets that they fly around in. I mean, these are people that everywhere they go, there's a line of limousines and SUVs. There's like a convoy, everywhere they go. Big gas-guzzling vehicles. I mean, they don't care about the environment. They couldn't care less about the environment. They don't care about the planet. The reason they want to depopulate is because they're afraid. Because we're waking up. People are starting to wake up. People are starting to realize this ain't good. There's stuff happening here that isn't good. And these people are behind it. People are starting to realize it. And these people are getting scared. They're saying the game is up. They're starting to figure it out. That ain't good for us. Imagine being the kind of a person, not that I want you to imagine being this kind of person, but still, figuratively at least, imagine being the kind of a person who gets a thrill out of committing atrocities against other people. And worse than that, who gets a thrill out of committing atrocities against little kids, children. What kind of a man can take like a 7-year-old girl and do those sorts of things to her? For most of us, it's instinctive. Look, if I saw something really bad happening to a 7-year-old girl on the street, some kid I didn't know, and some stranger was trying to do things to her like that, my first impulse would be to go over there and even to put my own life on the line to save that child. Even if it meant that I was going to get myself killed in the process. That would just be an instinctive thing with me. I'd have to do it. I couldn't live with myself if I turned the other way and pretended I didn't see what I just saw. And I'm not talking about some father taking his naughty daughter out to the parking lot because she's had a fit in the store and maybe giving her a few slaps on the ass and putting her in the car. There's people who intervene in that. I don't think that's reasonable. I think, a person has a right and an obligation to discipline their child. But with the stuff that these people are doing to children, it's not a matter of just, disciplining or whatever. They're actively raping and murdering children. Look, if I saw something like that going on, I would have to put myself into the middle of that and put a stop to it, even if it meant that I was going to risk going to prison or I was going to risk being killed. Because I couldn't live with it if I didn't. And I think most men, and most women too, for that matter, average people are that way. I think most of the average working class people are that way. So what kind of what mentality do you have to have where does your mind have to be at to do these sorts of things and to enjoy them? And not only that, but then to talk about them as if it's perfectly okay. They're talking amongst their friends, and the Epstein files are showing this. They were talking amongst their friends, amongst their peer group about this stuff just like it was a perfectly normal thing. I loved the torture video. Oh, did you now? Really? Like, you love that. When I was locked up in the reformatory in 1983, I experienced some torture. And I also experienced other people experiencing torture. You know what it did to me? You know what it did to me? It traumatized me. That's what it did. That's what it did to me. It didn't make me feel good. It didn't make me happy. It was years before I could even talk about some of this stuff. There's still stuff that went on in there that I don't talk about. There's stuff that I'll take to my grave that went on in that place. And now I'm hearing these people who are world leaders um, talking about doing these things. And they're talking about it just like going on a fishing trip or something. It's friggin' weird is what it is, and it's not normal. You gotta be totally messed up in your head to think any of that is normal. When I was, well, anyway, the thing is, I'm not going to talk about that, but the thing of it is, the thing of it is, I can't even begin to relate to it, and I don't think most people can. Most of us who are just average people, we can't relate to this. Most of us have kids of our own, or we have nieces and nephews, or we have kids who are somehow in our lives for different reasons, and we be protective of them. And most of us will even be protective of kids we don't know. We'll go out of our way to help and to protect a child we don't know. Even to the point of putting ourselves at risk. I know I will. And there have been a few times over the years where I have. I once came between a crazy person who was drunk and high on drugs and in a blind rage, and a woman who he was mad at. And I once came between them to pull a little toddler away from there because I was afraid, because the little toddler was standing between them, and I was afraid that the toddler was going to end up getting stabbed. That toddler is now in his 20s. This was a long time ago. But I remember pulling that little boy out of there. And I was scared because this guy's got a knife, a great big knife, and he's jabbing it like that at the mother, stopping just short of stabbing her. And the little kid is there right under his arm, and he's swaying back and forth because he can hardly stand up because he's drunk and high, you know. And I went straight. It wasn't even an option not to. I went over there and I pulled that little boy out of there because I was afraid for him. And if the same thing happened today, I'd do it again, too. I didn't know if I might get stabbed. That guy might have saw me coming and thought I was coming for him. He might have turned around and run me through. I had no way to know what was going to happen, but I couldn't allow that child to be in that situation. I couldn't allow that child to be in the middle of that. And so I pulled him out of there. You see. And I don't deserve any great credit for that because I didn't do anything that anyone wouldn't have done.